What's up, everybody? Ben Raz and Gajewski here for Awesemo, and it is time to talk all things Final Four. We've got 4 outstanding programs left, 2 marquee games. That means a ton to get to in the DFS streets. Matt, I just got to ask you off the top, how excited are you to have 4 big-time programs, 2 fantastic games?
I'm really excited. We have close spreads in both games. We obviously have the Duke UNC rivalry somehow never meeting in the tournament, which I didn't learn that till the broadcast said it out loud, but pretty crazy there. Overall, I'm super pumped.
Absolutely. We've got a ton to get to. We're going to break down the games. We're going to find the values. We're going to talk about the storylines. And of course, we're going to talk about PrizePicks. If you haven't been over there, they're sponsoring the show. Daily prop-based contests. You're picking 5 players. You can net up to 10 extra entry fees, and you're going to be examining whether they go over or under the projections, whether it's points, rebounds, assists, 3-pointers, fantasy points, all different types of categories, a different way to play, big opportunities. And if you're signing up, use the promo code Awesemo for a $100 first match deposit bonus. Download in the App Store, and you're going to get 1 free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum when you sign up using the link in the description. The great thing about that, Matt, your tools are geared to identifying these values. We're going to talk about them throughout the show. Let's get started. Let's hop into this first game. We've got Nova. We've got Kansas. Kansas is the, I think, rightful favorite. I thought it would be a bigger spread. It's just 4.5, minus 200-ish on the money line, 133 total. Villanova is walking wounded. They lost a marquee player. Are they legitimately down to 5 guys at this point?
Yeah, Justin Moore leaving the lineup leaves a massive hole in their lineup. He's a guy that plays 38-ish minutes a game, especially when these games are competitive. And their rotation only consisted of 5 players in addition to him. So now I think it's going to be narrowed to about 5 guys playing every single minute unless there's foul trouble or something, with Arcidiacono and Antoine coming in just here and there situationally. Now, overall, that is huge because Moore shoots a ton of threes, and this Nova team is known for them. He shoots the second most threes on this team. And right now you basically have Gillespie and Jermaine Samuels, I guess, taking over the vacated shot rate, the vacated assist rates. It is a massive hole.
It's gigantic. It can't be overstated. Caleb Daniels moves into the starting lineup, but he was already playing starters minutes. So I don't know exactly what they're going to do. Certainly, these guys are going to be busy. I'm drawn. I'm just going to hop to PrizePicks for a second. We can talk about all these guys. Colin Gillespie, his 3-point prop is actually down a little bit. It was 2.5 in all these games. It's flat 2 now. Assuming he's going to be launching, I kind of like the over there. But the guy I want to ask you, we identified Caleb Daniels in the previous round as kind of undervalued. Do you think him going into the starting lineup hurts him, helps him, or is kind of indifferent in terms of his usage?
I love the Gillespie call you just made. That's one I would take immediately. With Daniels, there's not just too much room for a ceiling with him. You know, he's already playing 34, 35, and 35 minutes in their last 3 games. So how many more minutes can he actually take on? If he plays all 40, we could get 5 extra minutes for him. Whereas a guy like Eric Dixon or Brandon Slater, they have room for many, many more minutes in this offense now. And they haven't shown a willingness to play Antoine or Arcidiacono. So I think Eric Dixon has my favorite prop. You can find him at 7.5 points on PrizePicks. I have him projected at 10 flat almost. So there is quite a bit of opportunity there with him. But you bring up the Gillespie one. That's one I really like towards the 3-pointers. They're going to have to shoot, and Gillespie is going to be taking a ton of them. Gillespie's really their best 3-point shooter now. It was kind of spread between him and Moore before. But Gillespie, 40-point 3-point shooter, he's going to be launching.
Yeah, I mean, he took 9, 9, and 10 in the first 3 games. He was 0 for 4 against Houston, but I kind of throw that out for a lot of reasons. A, they shot horribly. B, Houston's 3-point defense is always fantastic. I think they'll have more opportunities, and he will be forced, because I think they're going to be losing, to take some more threes. Let's talk a little lineup construction, then we'll go to Kansas. You've mentioned basically these 5 guys. All of them are going to play major minutes. And then Arcidiacono probably off the bench. He is the flat min. Is it necessary on a 2-game slate to look at that, or are we just saying that that's an unnecessary pay down?
So I'll start with Arcidiacono, and I think Brian Antoine might be the guy we look at a little more.
Okay.
Just listening around the league to the Villanova beats, Arcidiacono played terribly in his limited time already this tournament. So there's been speculation that Antoine might get a few extra minutes, but with that, I would like to emphasize a few extra minutes. Like, he's not going to be playing a lot. You're really going to need severe foul trouble or something for Antoine to get on the court. And Villanova plays so slowly and limits possessions that they don't really deal with fouls as some other teams do. So I don't think it's a major risk. You have Brandon Slater at 4K as well. So I don't know if you need to go all the way down to 3. Just pay the 1,000 extra, get to Slater. And Slater's going to play every single minute. Now, he's uninvolved. There is a concern there, but he opens up a construction that gets you Baycott and some of the other studs on the slate. If you can find the 900, Dixon is just significantly more involved than Slater overall. He would be my preferred value play on this Nova team, but can't fault you if you need Slater at 4K. Jermaine Samuels kind of occupies this mid-range with Caleb Daniels. They're both extremely involved, and people might be concerned with Jermaine's minutes. I wouldn't be. He was on a minute restriction in the midpoint of the season due to injury, and he's been unleashed in the tournament. I think both of them are fine, and they're so close in price. I have a preference towards Samuels. He has more double-double equity, but you can't go wrong with either. Gillespie's more your GPP play just because he's a little more expensive, and you start having to make business decisions between him and guys like Caleb Love and some other players in that range.
How many, I know in large field tournaments and only 2 games, you can do a lot, but do you anticipate pairing up like Slater and Dixon together in lineups? Can you go with multiple Nova players on this? There's only 4 teams to choose from.
In things like cash, low risk tournaments, I would max 2. The reason you can play 2 is you have guys at the near minimum, Slater and Dixon. If you're playing tournaments, I think you can play more, and you're just hoping that this game ends up being a little better than the latter game. Obviously, the North Carolina Duke game has nearly 15 points more in terms of their total in the game. So that's the one people are going to be targeting. This would be just your contrarian build. The more Villanova, the more contrarian you're going to be.
On the other side, the team that, credit to them. 1 seed, they took care of business. I didn't think they had the toughest road, to be honest. But you know what? Kansas, they really looked. I was super impressed. I liked Miami in that game. At halftime, I thought, man, this is a really good game plan. And Big Dave and co just came out and was on fire. The defense ratcheted it up. You've got Abaji, you've got Braun, you've got Renemy Martin, of course, has been integrated. Talk to me about this Jayhawks team. There's obviously a lot to break down.
Yeah, anytime you see a 26-point margin of victory in the Elite Eight, they did not face the most difficult road to get there. But for this team, they're just a little more expensive than I'd like them to be, which will make them contrarian. They're in the same price range as the North Carolina Duke guys, but their team total's not quite there. Their minutes aren't quite there either. Unless games are hyper competitive, you're rarely seeing these Kansas guys play every single minute. Agbaji's been at 34, 36, and 34. You have 3 other teams that will play players every single minute, so that does matter here. Not to mention, each of these players kind of has a role. Agbaji, he's mainly going to be a shooter, whereas if you play a guy in another team like Banchero for Duke, he's going to do everything for that team. So Agbaji doesn't project quite as well. With that said, he's a shooter. He has an immense ceiling, so he's going to be contrarian. The same can be said about Braun. I think the ceiling for Brown is a little lower than Agbaji. He just doesn't shoot quite as much, but he's a little more active in the periphery. Remy Martin is a player who's still not quite been fully unleashed yet, and I think part of that is they just won by 26 points. The Providence game was only a 5-point margin victory, but they were up far more than that earlier in the game, so you just didn't need to see Remy fully unleashed yet. He has a 20% shot rate, 16.5% rebound rate, which is absurd for his height, and then a 23% assist rate. There's room to grow with all those. That would come directly at the expense of DeJuan Harris. In the front court, you have Jalen Wilson playing a massive role lately. He's over 20% shot rate and up at 30% in terms of his rebound rate. Tons of double-double equity with him, and he's athletic. So Nova, when they try to play small, he's not coming off the court. That's a concern for Dave McCormick, who plays more your traditional 5. He's less athletic. He can get eaten up in the pick and roll sometimes. He has a ton of double-double equity when he plays the minutes. It's just there's no guarantee he plays the minutes. And now that Mitch Lightfoot has returned, this is a guy that played limited minutes first 2 rounds due to injury. He's now played above 16 in their last 2 games. With a healthier Mitch Lightfoot, they don't need Big Dave out there every single minute. So I think he's more of a concern, more your GPP play. Lightfoot would be a pivot off your Dixons and your Slaters in the really cheap range, but Lightfoot very, very risky.
Yeah, you mentioned the pay down there. I do want to ask you, and then I want to talk about PrizePicks for a second. Would you prefer Lightfoot or a guy like Antoine, you think? I know they're kind of different, but if you're talking like a utility punt, do you have a preference?
I would prefer Lightfoot for a couple of reasons. I think he plays better minutes than Antoine, and he plays a different role. He's going to be in the front court. He's playing against a small Nova team, so there's peripheral upside. Blocks are worth a lot on these platforms, and if he even gets 2 or 3, that's going to pay off his tag. You also have Nova, a very small team. They don't rebound very well. They're not very big in terms of height. He's a little more athletic than Big Dave, I think. So he kind of fits the bill where you can just, he doesn't even need to stuff the stat sheet. If he just picks up a few peripheral stats, he's going to pay off that tag.
My favorite prize picks, maybe from this whole game, would be Jalen Wilson's rebound, 7.5. I don't get that line. The guy's been over 10 in 3 straight. He's a rebounding machine. You mentioned he's athletic. I don't worry about foul trouble against a team like Nova. I assume you mentioned that last week that you're on board with that once again.
Yeah, Jalen Wilson, he's up above 8 for me, so that's a great number there. I like Eric Dixon in PrizePicks.
Yep.
We even projected at 10 points again. I think 7.5 is a pretty small line for him. That's my favorite in the game.
If you are looking for some betting picks, you're wondering who we're on, OddsChecker YouTube, go over there, check out the VOD that Matt did, hop in our Discord where you can get all the picks and all the bets from all the sports from everyone. Great community, sign up for the week, use the link in the description of this video, no doubt about it. And if you're just checking us out, hopping in, seeing why we have 75,000 subscribers on this channel, you can add one more by pressing that button, hit the like button to support us. We do appreciate it. We love to see the community grow. I never thought we would say this on video, but it is time for Duke and North Carolina in the tournament. I was also shocked that of all the great teams they've had in the same year, and I know they don't put them in like the same pod, but you would just think one year they both would have gotten through as the 2 best teams, and it has never happened. I don't think they're 2 of the best 4 teams this year, but honestly, they are playing fantastic, and both teams have really evolved, particularly UNC. I mean, I look back, Marquette was a 3-point dog to them in the first round. That game would be 15.5 now if they replayed it. So let's talk about it. You mentioned the discrepancy in the total. That's one of the many things that stands out here. We're talking about a 151 total. Duke is a 4-point favorite. Start with the Tar Heels, though. They did what Purdue couldn't, which was knock off St. Peter's mercifully, and they've just got an absolute machine inside with Bacot. But he's going to face bigs, multiple bigs, that I'm not sure he's really seen maybe the entire tournament, to be honest. So what do you make of UNC? How do we break this down?
He definitely hasn't. North Carolina's had a pretty stark size advantage in every game they've played. Marquette doesn't play with any bigs. Baylor, they're much smaller since they lost Chama Chachua. UCLA notoriously plays small. And St. Peter's, they're outside the top 250 in terms of effective height. So Duke has shown the ability to defend Bacot before. He actually has neither double-double. He doesn't have a double-double in either game so far. So this is a concern, but luckily UNC has the players to, I think, take advantage of a Duke defense. The total's so high in this game for a couple reasons. UNC plays extremely fast, and then both these teams good on offense, and they're a little suspect on defense. We have seen Duke slow a little bit in the tournament, and they're playing more zone, which could be a concern here. The only thing is, North Carolina has shooters, and they have 3 fantastic 3-point shooters in RJ Davis, Caleb Love, and Brady Manick. So from a stylistic standpoint, I actually like North Carolina in the game a little bit. They're the #1 team in the country since March began, per Bart Torvik. This team, hot. They're playing a really tight rotation, similar to Villanova now. You're going to see 5 guys on the floor, and you're not going to see a lot of rotation. I think for DFS, the main question is, can you pay up for Bacot? I think there's ways to do so, but you're probably running into a lot of duplicated lineups with Slater and some of the other cheap Nova pieces. But I would be concerned that Bacot has been limited in this matchup before. Now, we did see him score 23 points in one game, but the rebounds are kind of the key to Bacot. He's a walking double-double, 42% rebound rate last 3 games. If that's mitigated a little bit here, you might see his ceiling decrease. So I actually kind of have some interest in going down to play Brady Manick, who's a phenomenal 3-point shooter, shooting them at a 40% clip this year. He's going to play every single minute. You save $1,600 on DraftKings by going down to Manick. He still brings you double-double equity. He double-doubled in one of the games these teams played this year. But you can get Caleb Love so cheap here. He's $6,400. That's cheaper than Gajewski. He has the highest usage rate on the team, a 25.5% shot rate, active in the periphery. I don't know how you don't play Caleb Love. It's really difficult not to do so, but I think you can play multiple North Carolina guys.
Are you bold enough to short Bacot's 13 rebound prop on PrizePicks, or is it just something where you say, maybe for the premium tag we have to pay in terms of a traditional DFS site, that's where I'm going to short him.
He projects above that still for us. It's just tough in this individual matchup. Duke has shown the ability to limit him in the past with Mark Williams, so I probably would just stay away from that prop.
Do you think, I know this is more a philosophical question or whatnot, because I think he's much more live to potentially get into some trouble with the fouls. Is he the type of guy that they're just going to have to play through it, or do you think that Styles or some of these other guys that really won't be in the rotation would carve out minutes if Bacot is in trouble?
Duke hasn't really shown the ability to draw fouls against North Carolina in the past, especially this year. And Duke is really up and down drawing fouls this year, even though they have some of the bigs. And I think a lot of that depends on how much Mark Williams plays, because his minutes have been volatile throughout the season. They've solidified a little bit, so I think they've gotten better at drawing fouls. But there are certain games where, man, they can just get eaten up alive inside. If Bacot gets in foul trouble, I think it is a major concern, but I don't know if it happens here. Right now, I'm kind of leaning towards him playing through it. All the marbles are on the table here. They got to win this game, and Bacot needs to be out there if they're going to do it.
Now, another sentence I never thought I'd utter, but Leaky Black in the last game was fantastic. Now, he racked up a ton of blocks and steals. Is that just something that's an illusion and we can't go back to him, or is he a reasonable option on just a 2-game slate?
He's cheap enough, and he would be your pivot off of a cheap Nova piece. So I don't hate that. I think you could play like maybe a Kansas player or two, pivot off some of the cheap Nova guys and play Leaky as a pivot. Obviously, it's going to project a little worse, but that's not the reason you're playing it. You're playing it hopefully to gain some leverage by being contrarian. Now, Leaky is on the floor for defense, and this is actually something that could potentially segue us into some Duke talk. Who Leaky covers is extremely important. In the first game, he was exclusively on Banchero. Banchero scores 13 points. And it's a really poor performance for him just based on what he's done the rest of the season. But then AJ Griffin erupted for 27 points. Their second matchup, they switch. And then you have Leaky covering AJ Griffin. He's largely held in check, but then Banchero erupts again for a double-double, scores over 15 points. I don't know who he's going to cover here, but I kind of think that he's going to be on Banchero again. They won the second matchup. Banchero is probably the best player in the country. I think he's the favorite to be the number 1 draft pick. I think it just makes more sense for Leaky to try to play against him.
I would agree. AJ Griffin is an interesting guy, though, if that's the case, because he's in the mid-5s as well. He's a big, that's the thing about Duke. It's not that they're just big in the front court. They're just big. They've got long players. He's one of those guys. He's a 3-point threat. I'm certain he's playable, but where does he fall in the pretty crowded 5K range?
Yeah, he's definitely playable. The upside is clear. We've seen it with him already. He scored over 20 points in this match against North Carolina. He's an amazing 3-point shooter. He has height advantages over most players. He's 6'6", I believe, which is really tall for like a 3-point shooting guard. He's even listed as a guard/forward here in DraftKings. His rates are a little low right now. I wouldn't be too concerned. This is a guy that suffered an injury in the opening round of the tournament. So he has been kind of on a minute restriction, but when games are competitive, he plays nearly every single minute. We saw that in Duke's second most recent game. So I still think you can buy low on him. People might be scared because of the minutes. I'm not. I'm comfortable getting to AJ Griffin. I think he's probably the guy you would like to get to, probably second most from a price-adjusted standpoint, Banchero being the guy you would try to prioritize.
Where does like Roach and Keels and those guys, are they just pieces that you might fall into, or is there something that you can glean in terms of a potential value play in there?
So between Roach and Griffin, there's a $100 price difference between them. Roach is the cheaper player by 100 on DraftKings. I think, and on FanDuel, it's actually pretty similar. He's 200 cheaper there. I think people are going to play Roach for the minute consistency. He is actually playing pretty well. He has a 16% shot rate, 21% assist rate. He's their ball handler, so the assist rate makes sense here. I think Roach is your play in cash format, just a more solid floor, you would call it. But Griffin has the higher ceiling, in my opinion, from that 3-point shooting. He has a little higher rebound equity as well, just with his size. And he's the 1-for-1 pivot I would make. Keels is a really interesting GPP play because he's kind of in that range where you have Slater and Dixon for Nova, but he doesn't have any of the minute consistency as them. He's 25 minutes, 14 minutes, and then 25 minutes in their last 3 games. he's been kind of splitting with Roach, but we saw him play a little more for AJ Griffin in their most recent game. If he gets 25 minutes again, I think he's probably the best GPP play on the slate. As far as Wendell Moore and Mark Williams, their rates have kind of shifted. Moore was far more active in the beginning of the year. He's still priced too expensive for my liking. He'll play every single minute, but he doesn't do anything when he's on the floor right now. His role has just decreased so much. Whereas Mark Williams has become a walking double-double. The concern with him was minutes, and he's played at least 30 in 3 straight games now.
Yeah, and again, the size, I think he will be one of the many guys tasked with slowing down Bacot in that front court. It's a fascinating game. I don't think there's anything else in terms of basically all these teams outside Kansas, really tight rotations.
Yeah, for sure. And I would not think Theo John plays much. Yeah. If Theo John gets more than 10 minutes, it's because both Banchero and Mark Williams are in foul trouble. Even if just one of them is in foul trouble, Theo John's not playing significantly, I don't think.
I'm interested. My final takeaway from this game, I think there is a chance this comes in way under the total, because what we've seen, and we've talked about this a little already, there have been several teams that have, I don't want to say duped, but have gotten North Carolina to play at more their speed. And I think there is a chance that Duke is able to do that here. North Carolina wants to play crazy fast. UCLA didn't want that, and they weren't able to. And I think there's a chance that Duke is able to slow this game and keep it possibly even in the 60s.
3 of North Carolina's last 5 games have been played to a pace below 70 possessions. Part of that against St. Peter's, they were killing them so bad they didn't need to. So I think you can look at 2 of their last 4 competitive games were played to a slow pace. But I looked at the 2 games that they played this year. North Carolina, they lost the first game. That one was played to a pace of about 70 possessions. And then the second time they played, Duke ran with them. It was at 76.5 possessions, which is really curious to me because Duke was actually winning at halftime of that game. And North Carolina just ran, and Duke decided to run with them, which ultimately they lost that game. Duke, that is.
Yeah, I think that was a mistake. I think they learned from that. That was also, and I know the hype is going to be, overkill here, but that was a ridiculous game in Cameron. We will see. It's a fascinating game. You said you kind of lean to North Carolina potentially with the points.
Yeah, I haven't bet it yet. It's at 4.5. I think come game day, you might be able to take a +5. So it's one I'm just waiting on. We'll probably take North Carolina either way, but we'll see on the points.
There we go. We'll see on the points. Again, if you want that type of content, OddsShopper YouTube, go over there anyway. There's a lot of good stuff going on. Matt, final thoughts on the 2 games. Floor is yours.
I think for DFS purposes, thinking about where you get contrarian is really important. You're going to see a lot of lineup duplication. The Duke-North Carolina game is clearly better. There's some underpriced players, Caleb Love being the main one. And to jam those studs in, you're going to see people play 1 or 2 cheap Nova guys. I think Kansas provides the best leverage on the slate, but there's a couple other ways. Maybe you just flip the lineup construction, but always think about how you are being contrarian in an intelligent way.
There it is, 2-game slate. You got to change it up. And again, go over to PrizePicks. Take advantage of some of the guys we talked about, whether it's Dixon, Gillespie, some of these other guys from the second game as well. There's a lot of opportunity there. And when you sign up, use the promo code Awesemo. Why not take the free money and get the free month as well? So we're going to bounce on out here. Of course, we will be back for the national championship. Can't wait to see these games. If you have any questions, at Matt_Gajewski, at JazzRazDFS. For everyone here at Awesemo, good luck. Enjoy the games. We will talk to you guys soon.